Hey, everybody. This is Erik J. Olson for yet another episode of the Managing Partners podcast. On this podcast series, we talk to managing partners about how they are growing their firms, running their firms, and what they are doing to get more cases. But today, we're changing it up. We don't have a managing partner on. We have an IT provider to talk about how he helps law firms stay secure, protected, and how he can help you as well. Without further ado, what's up, Troy? How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great, man. Appreciate you joining us.
Sure. Thank you for the invite.
Of course, man. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm.
Yes. So, name's Troy McCollum with Layer 9 IT firm, local here in Hampton Roads. This is our 19th year, be our 20th year in August. So we've been around for a while, seen some changes in the IT events, if you will, and really just got started and have a passion for really protecting people's data and delivering it properly and make sure that we can manage workflows and productivity. So law firms naturally became attractive because to all of them, they really value time. And that's the things we work to give back in the IT world to make sure that we're protecting their data, their clients' data, and delivering that time back to them.
So I would imagine with a law firm, yeah, time is a big issue. Yeah, we bill by the hour, and so we got to make sure that we're efficient with our time usage, right? But also like security. I would imagine email is a huge thing. Maybe even text messages. Do they come into play as well?
Yeah, they can, because it depends on how the relationship with them and their clients, and what policies they have in place. I find it almost ironic a lot of times that there's a lack of policy in law firms for IT management and how things are handled, how cases, documentation is delivered, whether it's emailed through a portal, hand delivered, scanned in, are they using Dropbox? What are they doing to house the data? That becomes the big part of it.
Yeah. So I would imagine if there's like requests for discovery, like a lot of that information has to be dug up potentially, but certainly it needs to be preserved and probably centralized, right? If you have, say, 5 attorneys and they're sending emails to the same client, like probably that all needs to be centralized.
Yeah. Document management becomes a huge part of it.
Yeah, definitely. We have a personal injury law firm in South Carolina, and they have a requirement to preserve every piece of advertising and public messaging for 2 years. Wow. And their IT person is going to be like handling that. When they came to us at first as a marketing agency, we're like, yeah, that's kind of IT. Right. So big requirements. And if they don't do it and they get called out on it, or, if they have to produce it and they can't, it's a concern. So it's a project that's definitely going forward. Do you see things like that a lot as well?
Yeah. And a lot of times what we also see, it depends who their clients are. They could be, personal injury. It could be, divorce. But then you get some that also do and review government contracts. So if like the new CMMC requirement is one as well, that if they're reviewing the contracts and touching some of that information, they too have to adhere to that same compliance. So that's where that's where the people have to really understand and know what information that they're housing, protecting, and reviewing.
So let's talk about that regulation you just talked about. Can you explain in a little more detail what that is and how that applies to law firms?
Sure. Yeah. So CMMC is Cybersecurity Maturity Modeling Certification. It's a lot to spit out. That's why we all say CMMC. But what that is, it's a new government compliance that is being rolled out. Everybody, I would imagine, has heard of the NIST compliance, but now the CMMC takes that NIST 800-171 guideline and it adds to it. It's adding 15 additional controls. It's still in the works a little bit. They're close. They're on CMMC 2.0 now, and it's supposed to roll out by, I believe it's the 24. Yeah, 24. It's going to roll out and be official. But people now are doing their CMMC readiness, and what that is to make sure that compliance is happening, and you can demonstrate it with items such as 2-factor, and you're encrypting the hard drives or wherever the data sits. You don't have to encrypt the machine if there's no data on there, but you do have to encrypt it if there's actual data resting on the device.
Gotcha. Okay, now. The law firms that come to you, do they typically come for something like that, this CMMC, or is it something a little more like mundane. Like I need someone that can like get computers to the new staff and printers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, usually there's a frustration part that plays into there, that something's happened or there's been at least a trigger of something in IT that is not working for them. We did just actually sign up a new partner, and we onboarded them actually yesterday. But what their concern was actually security, because their cyber insurance was calling for things that they realized that they didn't have. So that became a huge part, because they wanted to make sure they could get cyber insurance, and it's changed a lot. Because you used to be able to check a box that, yes, I do this, this, and this, 3 things, and I'm good. And they were giving out insurance for, $1,500, $2,000. Now there's specific items they're asking for. That, do you have like an EDR, which is an advanced endpoint detection and response? It's an advanced antivirus. They're looking specifically for things. Is all your email 2-factored? And when you're signing off and checking those boxes, they're also asking sometimes to show proof of it. Sometimes I know the reports are having to be sent showing the documentation and the proof that that's being done.
So yeah, speaking of like different systems, like say email, do you provide that as well, or do you guide them to some other system like say Outlook or?
Yeah, so generally we'll either they're using G Suite or Office 365. It could be user preference. We'll make recommendations, depends on the workflow again. Because, if they're using Litify, we'll make some recommendations on what software they're using that's going to be the best for integrating into that. And then making sure, you can have Office 365, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's protected. There's things to do specific for legal, with legal hold is one of them that has to be enabled, so that you really can't ever delete anything. It's always there. And that's a requirement. It's one of the compliance requirements that you guys have. But also there's, making sure that 2-factor is enabled. It's there by default. It's just turned off by default as well. When you first sign into your inbox, it's just a login and password. It doesn't cost really any extra to do it. Maybe the implementation depends on how many accounts and things, but to physically check it and do it yourself, it's free. Yeah.
So for the benefit of some of the audience that may not be aware of 2-factor authentication, can you explain what that is and how it helps?
Yeah. So multi-factor or 2FA, 2-factor authentication. I would hope that when you sign into your bank account, you're doing this today. It's when you have a login, a password, and then there's a second form of authentication via the text message or using an app to like a Google Authenticator. There's multiple ones out there, but that it's a 6-digit, 7-digit code generally that's pushed out that you can type the code in. And some of them also offer a push option where if you go to the site, put in the login, the password successfully, it'll actually, your phone will pop up and say, do you want to allow? And you can just hit allow. If it pops up and you didn't ask for it, then somebody has your login and password. So that would be something to obviously take action on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we use 2-factor authentication on any system that allows it. And we're all cloud here, 100%. So we have a lot of 2-factor authentication codes being sent out and whatnot. At one point, my dad actually said that he thought that my email got hacked because he got a spoofed email.
Right.
And I'm like, nah, I don't think so, Dad. I got 2-factor authentication. I've got a strong password, and I use a password manager. Speaking of which, password managers, is that something that is commonly probably not used, or is it recommended by you and your firm?
Yeah, commonly not used. We do recommend it. For example, say you have a paralegal that's working, and she's got access to obviously all the internal software that you guys are using, whether it's cloud or on-prem. But then there's also other sites that maybe it's your practice admin, and she also has access to the 401k information or anything else that's happening inside the practice internally. That's going to be logins and passwords that you're going to need if that practice admin leaves, quits, you fire, whatever happens. You want to maintain control over that for the practice, not for the individual. So that's something that we definitely recommend and push, because a lot of times people by nature, lazy and easy, kind of go hand in hand sometimes, and they use that same password.
Yeah.
This is a scan that we actually run, and we just, for the office that we actually just signed up, we ran the scan and came back multiple times on the websites we're using the same passwords for. And that the problem with that is, if, let's just say, for example, your Netflix password is the same as your bank password, is the same as to your online portal to your client information, or it's a small variable. If I take that known password and plug it into a bot, it can actually go out there in multiple times a second try a password, especially if things are not in place to reject it or lock after 7 attempts or notifications, things like that.
I have never heard of a scan like that. I'm going to ask you questions after we stop recording about that, how it works. That's pretty interesting. That's neat. I'm kind of interested in that for me personally. But yeah, password managers are fantastic. We use one for our entire team, and so we can create these little like vaults, and then the vault has the credentials, and that's kind of a need to know basis, which is, well, I think that's kind of a foundational aspect of security, right? Like need to know. You give people access to what they need to know and no more.
Yeah, keeping it minimized, and then also understanding what information you're protecting. That same scan that we ran, there was a new operations person that came on board. Had been there for 3-4 weeks, not very long. They're really trying to head down, get a lot of things straight in the business from an operational standpoint, from an IT standpoint, and hence the reason we came on. But also, we when we ran our scan, we found out that person, the new operations person, also had a number of cases on her machine, which they didn't realize that when they went to their new cloud-based system, that they were still syncing their old OneDrive to every machine that was a new user in the practice. And that the new operations manager had a laptop, and it wasn't encrypted and had all the case files on it. And they asked, well, why does she have case files? I was like, that's a great question to ask you guys. So they realized that the case files were there because they knew the names. I didn't know the names when I showed them the report. But knowing where that information is key and what's going on with it. Because, you think about how many years you've been in practice and how the business has grown or changed and morphed, and the software is changing everything else. That cleanup sometimes gets ignored. And that's super important to know where all the data sits.
So the people that listen to this podcast are a lot of managing partners, a lot of partners, a lot of marketers. They're all trying to grow their firm. That's the point, right? Which means that they're adding staff. What would it be like if they worked with you and they hired someone new from an IT perspective? Like, how would things change maybe from the way that they're doing it now to the way that they're doing it with you?
Sure. I mean, and we also take these recommendations and use them with your IT person, but the key to it and the things that we've seen that have been really super successful is have it during the onboarding documentation that you have with the new staff member, whether it's a paralegal, front desk person, partner, new managing partner, or, just another attorney, having it set up so that when they come on, they're set up for success and their software set up, their email set up, their printers are right, but having that new user check sheet and that being part of the onboarding in HR, just the same if they're offboarding, that information being there as well, so that they are locked out properly and we're protecting the firm practice. But that's what we've seen key is doing that. We ask for a week's notice. We ask for 5 business days of notice before a new person begins. Generally, nobody walks into a law firm and says, I'd like to have a job, and they're hired on the spot. So we ask for at least 5 days so that we can make sure they are set up for success. And then also it gets tested by either the practice admin or whoever it may be in the practice, just to make sure they've got everything they need and any nuances to it are taken care of before that person sits in that chair, logs in, and has a successful IT relation, or successful relationship with the practice from the start, so they have a good onboarding.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, I noticed on your website you have a book or a white paper about cybersecurity, 5 ways to prevent a cyber attack. What are some considerations when it comes to cybersecurity, cyber attacks? Ways that you can prevent it?
Sure. Really, the first thing is identifying what you're protecting, and knowing what's there. Also, the simple steps you can take is making sure the 2-factor, as we discussed earlier, are enabled whenever you can. You definitely turn off your email, and then user training is also the biggest thing. In user training, because the human firewall is the best element you can have for defense. Just yesterday, Amy, who works at our office, got an email and forwarded to me. She said, haha, I guess you want these gift cards. It was an old email address I used to have, and she sent it to me, and it was my name, Troy McCollum, and then in hyphens it had my email account. So to the eye, it looked real.
Yeah.
She sent me a screenshot of it, and it was asking for 4 Home Depot gift cards totaling $2,000 total. And she knew it wasn't me asking for them. So because we've done end user training, had I not done that, she may have got them because it looked legitimate from my email, but when I walked over to her desk, and because she sent me the screenshot in Teams, we use Microsoft Teams for inter-office communication. And she hit reply, and I said, well, I hit reply and I'll show you. And the actual email address was some other random Gmail account that was not true. But to the naked eye, if she'd have gone and got and hit reply and insert, that would have done it. And we've seen that multiple times in practices and businesses alike.
Oh yeah, that happens here all the time. I get forwarded an email, or one of my employees will Slack me, which is similar to Teams communication, where they'll say, "Hey Eric, is this really you?" And it's like, no, it's good eye. You're smart. You did the right thing. And then I'll just tell the entire team that just beware, because apparently like these hackers like to masquerade as me, but they're not even as sophisticated as like what you described. The email address that is coming from is not my email address. It may have the word Erik in there, but it's clearly not my email address, and they can see that. And then we work with computers all day long, and kind of sort of in IT with digital marketing, at least a little segment of IT, but we can spot it. But I would imagine that other people that haven't been talked to, haven't been warned, aren't as sophisticated when it comes to that, could easily get spoofed. And you're right, that's the big problem, right? Is the human engineering.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's like 88% of the time breaches happen through email, because it's public facing, people can send to it, and it's just the easiest way into a network.
Yeah.
And then, if they click on that one click, and that's really what our test does, that we actually do simulated phishing testing to end users.
Nice.
The first time we do it without telling anybody. Now the managers know, like the owner, manager, C-levels know, but we don't tell anybody else in the practice, and we send it out and see how they perform. And then we do a on-site or remote, depending on location, seminar with them, and show them the results. And I'll ask the managing partners, hey, do you want me to show what these people did individually, or do you want me to just kind of gray it out, but let them know what happened internally, but not call anybody out? Most of the time they're like, call them out, because they're saying you're not going to get me. But it happens a lot. But that's part of the education piece, is understanding what they did, and then quarterly doing actual training that is a click through, that they can't just turn a video on and walk away.
Is it possible, if you get an email and you click on a hyperlink, you will go to a website that just immediately downloads an executable that's a virus?
Yes. So part of the test that I sent out, and the one I'm speaking about that I ran a report on, and I'm more than happy to send it to the listeners on the call if they want to run it. It's a miniature pen test. I do have a document they sign before we run it, because it is actual penetration test on the network. But the document just states that, obviously, speaking to lawyers here, we're not going to sell any information. We may see proprietary information, because we may see the website and the same passwords being used type deal. It won't show us the full password, and you'll get a copy of the report. But inside that report, the things it looks for and shows you'll be amazed at how many times people do reuse passwords and do things like that. And that pen test really gives you a good insight on what's going on there.
Well, I'll tell you what, Troy, I'm interested. We're going to talk after this. So hey, if someone else is interested and they want to find out more about your services, the penetration test you're talking about, they have some questions about IT, where can they contact you? Sure.
You can go right to our website. It's layer9, LAYER, the number 9, IT.com, or you can give us a call. That's direct to our sales number there, the 598-3439, 757.
Cool. And you are based in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk market, as am I. How far away from this, Eastern Virginia can you work? Like, do you fly to places, or is it all within driving distance?
Yeah. So funny. I have a new hobby, which is a pilot's license. So we do fly to places as well, even before the hobby. But we've got firms in South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee. We're talking to one in Colorado.
Good for you.
So really East Coast, but a lot of it's starting to spread out now, because really my goal is really to help protect and deliver data. That's really our company mission, is getting that done. So 95% of the work can be done remote. There is times we do go on site, and we do spend time, doing reviews and things, and getting businesses to move forward and align technology with the business needs and goals. But in doing that, sometimes there is FaceTime involved, but a
Mhm.
lot of work with troubleshooting, help desk support, things of that nature, standardization and optimization, a lot of that can be done remote.
Very cool. Love it. Well, Troy, thanks again. And everybody, if excuse me, if you are looking for digital marketing for your law firm, that's what my firm specializes in. You can find out more at arraylaw.com. We focus on websites, a lot of SEO, online advertising, and social media. All right, Troy, appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.